It was raining the night the devil remembered he still had a conscience. Not a gentle rain. The kind that hammers the city into submission, turns alleyways into rivers, and hides sins in plain sight. That was the night a 6-year-old girl, soaked in mud, shaking with terror, ran straight into the most exclusive private club in New York City, and changed everything. She didn't slow down for the armed guards. She didn't flinch at the smoke, the guns, or the men who ruled the city from leather chairs and whispered deals. She ran inside and screamed a single sentence so loud it sliced through the music like glass. "They're killing her." The record player scratched. Conversations died midword. Most men in that room would have dragged her back into the rain without a second thought. But Lorenzo Moretti wasn't most men. He was the king of the city. And what he did next didn't just break every rule of the underworld, it lit the match that burned half of New York to the ground. You think you know Mafia romances? You don't. Because this is the true story of the night of the red rain. Rain in New York doesn't wash anything clean. It just makes the filth shinier. Inside the Onyx room, the storm outside didn't matter. The air was thick with aged mahogany, expensive cologne, Cohiba cigar smoke, and fear. Real fear. The kind men pretended not to feel. Lorenzo Moretti sat at the head of a table worth more than most people's homes, slowly swirling a glass of amber whiskey. 32 years old. Calm. Controlled. Eyes dark as cold espresso. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow, a quiet reminder of a childhood that had ended violently and early. Across from him sat Councilman Bill Henderson, a man drowning inside a tailored Italian suit. Sweat bled through his collar despite the room's cool air. "El Lorenzo, please," Henderson stammered, fingers trembling as he adjusted his cufflinks. "The zoning permits, they're moving, just slower than expected. The mayor's watching everything. Right now." Lorenzo didn't respond. He simply set his glass down. The soft clink echoed through the room like a gunshot. "I don't pay you for excuses, Bill," Lorenzo said calmly. "I pay you for pavement." He leaned forward slightly. "I want ground broken on the waterfront project by Friday. Or I break you." The threat wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It settled into the room, heavy, final, absolute. Then the front doors exploded open. The massive double doors slammed against the wall as two bouncers, Rocco and Tiny, moved instantly. Professionals. No one entered the Onyx without an invitation. They stopped short. Because standing in the doorway wasn't a cop. Wasn't a rival. Wasn't a hitman. It was a child. No more than 6 years old. Her pink coat was torn and soaked black with street sludge. Rain plastered her hair to her skull. Her chest heaved violently, each breath sounding like it might be her last. She looked less like a girl and more like something that had crawled out of a storm drain. "Hey, kid, you can't be in here," Rocco barked, stepping forward, instinctively reaching for her arm. She dodged him. The girl sprinted into the center of the room, eyes darting across the terrifying faces of the city's most dangerous men. Then, somehow, they locked onto Lorenzo. Maybe she felt the power rolling off him. Maybe it was luck. Either way, she ran straight for the head of the table. Henderson recoiled as if she carried a disease. "Stop," Lorenzo said. "One word." Rocco froze. The room went dead silent. The little girl grabbed the lapel of Lorenzo's custom suit with hands caked in mud. She shook so hard her teeth chattered. Tears carved clean lines down her filthy cheeks. "Please," she gasped. "Please, mister, you look big. You look scary." Lorenzo glanced down at the muddy handprints on his silk suit. Then he met her eyes. Blue. Wide. Terrified. "I am scary, Piccolina," he said quietly. "How did you get past the gate?" "I squeezed through the bars," she cried, pointing back toward the door. "My sister, Bella, she told me to run." "Run where?" Lorenzo asked. "To the big lights," she sobbed. Please, who's chasing you? The bad men. Her voice cracked. They have bats. They're hitting her in the alley behind the dumpster. She's not moving anymore. Henderson scoffed, rising from his chair. This is ridiculous. Call the police or throw the brat out. We have business. Lorenzo turned his head slowly. The look in his eyes made Henderson sit back down instantly. His mouth snapped shut. Lorenzo stood. He removed his suit jacket without hesitation and draped it over the shivering girl. It swallowed her whole. Rocco, Lorenzo said calmly. My gun. Rocco unholstered a matte black 1911 and handed it to him, gripped first. Lorenzo checked the chamber. Then he looked at the girl. Show me. She grabbed his hand, tiny, freezing fingers wrapping around his scarred ones, and pulled him toward the door. They stepped into the rain. The storm hit them hard as she led him down a narrow service alley reeking of rotting vegetables and gasoline. Lorenzo heard the sounds before he saw them. The wet, sickening thud of wood hitting flesh. Laughter. 3 men stood under flickering light, hoods up, street-cheap clothes soaked through. One raised a baseball bat for another swing. On the ground lay a woman curled into herself, motionless. Her white waitress uniform was soaked crimson. That's enough, the man with the bat laughed. Lesson learned. Next time, have the money. Hey. Lorenzo's voice wasn't loud. It was thunder. The 3 men spun around. The one with the bat sneered, not recognizing him through the rain. Walk away, pal, he said. This ain't your business. Unless you want to bleed too. Lorenzo released the girl's hand. Sophie, he said softly, choosing the name without thinking. Close your eyes. Cover your ears. Count to 10. She obeyed instantly. Lorenzo stepped forward. He didn't run. He stalked. Who the hell are you? The thug shouted. Ed, raising the bat. Lorenzo didn't answer. When the bat swung, Lorenzo stepped inside the arc with terrifying speed. His left hand caught the bat mid-swing, the wood cracking under his grip. With his right hand, the pistol came up fast. In one brutal motion, Lorenzo slammed the butt of the gun into the man's temple. The sound echoed through the alley, thick and sickening, like a melon smashing against concrete. The man dropped without a sound, his body folding into the wet ground. The other 2 froze for half a second. Then panic exploded. One of them went for a knife. Lorenzo didn't hesitate. The gun barked once, sharp and final. The bullet tore into the man's kneecap. A scream ripped through the rain as he collapsed into the mud, clutching his leg, writhing. The 3rd man, their leader, scrambled backward, terror written across his face. He tripped, stumbling over the woman's motionless body. Do you know who we work for? He shouted desperately. We're with Ollie. You're dead, you hear me? Dead. Lorenzo stepped over him, towering above the man as rain streamed down the barrel of his gun. Ali's a bottom feeder, Lorenzo said calmly. Tell him Lorenzo Moretti sends his regards. His boot came down hard, cracking into the man's jaw. The threat went limp. Silence flooded back into the alley. Nothing but rain. And the broken sobs of the man screaming in the mud, his knee shattered. Lorenzo holstered his weapon and dropped to one knee beside the woman. The cold mud soaked through his pants as he gently turned her over. Her face was battered beyond mercy, deep bruises, one eye swollen shut, lips split and bleeding. But beneath the blood and swelling, something hit Lorenzo square in the chest. Hard. A feeling he hadn't felt in 10 years. She was beautiful, even like this. Even broken. There was a fierce defiance in the set of her jaw, a refusal to surrender that hadn't been beaten out of her. She groaned softly. Her eyes fluttered open. One green eye struggled to focus. S on him. Sophie, she whispered. Blood bubbled at her lips. Did she get away? Lorenzo brushed a wet strand of hair from her forehead, his touch unexpectedly gentle. "She's safe," he said quietly. "She's with me." "Who?" she coughed, pain flashing across her face. "Who are you?" Lorenzo leaned closer, his voice low. "I'm the monster that eats other monsters." He scooped her up effortlessly. She weighed almost nothing, too thin, too light. Suddenly, small hands grabbed his leg. Sophie had unplugged her ears and run back into the alley, her face pale with fear. "Is she dead?" she cried. "Is Bella dead?" "No," Lorenzo said firmly, rising with Bella in his arms. "But we need to go. Now." He turned toward the club entrance just as Rocco and the security team arrived, guns drawn, eyes widening at the carnage. "Boss?" Rocco asked cautiously. "Clean this up," Lorenzo said, his voice cold as steel. "Leave the one with the broken knee alive. I want to know exactly who sent them." Rocco nodded. "Bring the car around," Lorenzo added. "We're going to the estate." "The estate?" Rocco hesitated. "Boss, you never take strangers to the estate." Lorenzo looked down at the woman resting against his chest, her breathing shallow, her head tucked instinctively beneath his chin. "She's not a stranger," he said, even as he wondered why he believed it. "She's my responsibility now." The Moretti estate rose from the hills like a fortress disguised as a mansion. 12 bedrooms. A wine cellar worth millions. And a private medical bay better equipped than most hospitals. Lorenzo paced the hallway outside the guest room, a cigarette burning between his fingers. He hadn't taken a single drag in 10 minutes. The door finally opened. Dr. Ayres stepped out, gray-haired and weary, the kind of man who had stitched up more bullet wounds than he cared to remember. "Well?" Lorenzo asked, crushing the untouched cigarette into a crystal ashtray. "She's lucky," Ayres said. 3 broken ribs. A fractured wrist. Mild concussion. Severe bruising, but no internal bleeding. Lorenzo exhaled slowly. "She's malnourished," the doctor continued. "Overworked. She needs real rest. Not just healing." "And the girl?" Lorenzo asked. "Sleeping in the next room. The maids bathed her and fed her. Brave kid. Wouldn't eat until I promised her sister was alive." Lorenzo nodded, the tension in his jaw easing slightly. "Can I see her?" "She's awake. Groggy from the painkillers, but awake. And she's asking for you." The room smelled of antiseptic and lavender. Bella was propped against a mountain of pillows. Her face was a canvas of purple and blue, but her eyes were sharp and alert. They widened when Lorenzo entered. "You," she rasped. "Me. Where's Sophie?" "Next door. Sleeping hard. 2 guards at her door, 1 at the window. The president isn't as protected as your sister right now." Bella released a breath she'd been holding for hours. Her shoulders sagged with relief. Then suspicion returned. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you help us?" "I know who you are. I saw your face on the news. You're Lorenzo Moretti. They call you the King of New York." "Some call me worse," he said calmly. "And I helped because your sister ran into a lion's den to save you. That takes more courage than half the men I employ." Bella stared at her bandaged hands. "I can't pay you," she whispered. "I don't have money. That's why those men were there." "I don't want your money, Isabella." "Then what do you want?" she asked, defiance flashing through the pain. "Men like you always want something." Lorenzo leaned forward. The air between them tightened. "I want to know why Declan Ali's low-level thugs were beating a waitress to death over a debt that couldn't be more than $5 grand. Bella flinched. "It's not my debt," she whispered, tears forming. "It was my father's. He had a gambling problem. He borrowed $10,000 3 years ago. He died last year. I thought the debt died with him. Debts like that." Never die, Lorenzo said quietly. They get inherited. They raised the interest, she continued. They said I owe 50,000 now. I work double shifts. I clean houses on weekends. It's never enough. Today they said time was up. They said if I didn't pay, they'd take Sophie. Lorenzo's fists clenched, knuckles whitening. The image of that small girl storming his club burned in his mind. The thought of anyone laying a hand on her ignited something dark and primal. They won't touch her, Lorenzo said. It wasn't a promise. It was a vow. Don't stop them, Bella whispered, her voice barely holding together. O'Malley is powerful. If I stay here, I put you in danger. Lorenzo didn't answer right away. Then he laughed, a low, dry sound with no humor in it at all. Isabella, he said calmly, gesturing around the room, look at where you are. I am the danger. Ali isn't a threat. He's an inconvenience. And I deal with inconveniences. He rose from his chair, and the shift in the room was immediate. His presence alone seemed to press against the walls. You and Sophie stay here, he continued. Until you're healed. Until I say it's safe. I can't accept charity, Bella protested, forcing herself to sit up, only to wince as pain ripped through her side. Lorenzo was already walking toward the door. This isn't charity. He stopped with his hand on the brass handle and looked back at her. His face gave nothing away. Consider it an investment, he said. I hate messy alleys near my club. Bad for business. They both knew it was a lie. The door closed softly behind him. Rocco was waiting in the hallway. Boss, he said, holding out a tablet. We got something out of the guy with the shattered knee before he passed out. It's worse than we thought. Lorenzo took the tablet. Talk to me. The gambling debt is real, Rocco said, grim. But that's not why they were beating her. Ali doesn't send 3 men after a waitress over 50 grand. He sends one guy to break a thumb. Then. Why were they there? Rocco hesitated. Because of her father. Lorenzo's eyes narrowed. Before he died, Bella's father was the accountant for the docks. Union records. Shipping logs. Rumor is, he stole a ledger. One that proves Ali is trafficking fentanyl through the cargo ports. Lorenzo said nothing. O'Malley thinks Bella has it. Lorenzo glanced toward the closed bedroom door. Everything had just changed. Bella wasn't just collateral damage. She was leverage. A key that could tear down his biggest rival. And yet, as he stood there, Lorenzo realized something far more dangerous. He didn't care about the ledger. He wanted O'Malley destroyed because Bella's face had been bruised. Triple the guard, Lorenzo ordered. Get the car ready. Rocco blinked. Where are we going, boss? It's 3 a.m. Lorenzo checked his gun. We're paying Mr. Ali a visit. Rocco's mouth twitched. Message or massacre? I'm returning his baseball bat. South Boston, the Irish Riviera, as the locals called it, was nothing like Lorenzo's polished Manhattan skyline. Here, streetlights flickered or didn't work at all. The silence felt heavy, alive with unseen eyes. At 4:15 a.m., 3 black SUVs rolled to a stop outside the Shamrock, a decaying dive bar that doubled as Declan O'Malley's headquarters. Stay in the car, Lorenzo told the driver. Rocco. Leo. You're with me. No guns unless they draw first. I want a message sent, not a bloodbath. Not yet. Rocco nodded, flexing his fingers. The baseball bat rested easily on his shoulder. The door was locked. Lorenzo didn't knock. He stepped back and drove his foot into the oak door just below the lock. Wood exploded inward with a thunderous crack, the door slamming against the wall. Inside, the bar was dim and stale. Smoke hung thick in the air. A poker game froze mid-hand, 6 men jumping up, hands drifting toward their waistbands. Don't, Lorenzo said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. They froze. Everyone in that world knew the scarred eyebrow, the tailored suit, the man who didn't make threats unless he planned to keep them. A heavy-set red-bearded man stepped forward. Connor O'Malley. Well, if it isn't Moretti, Connor sneered, though his eyes flicked nervously to Rocco's bat. You're a long way from your penthouse. This is neutral ground. Neutral ground ended, Lorenzo replied, advancing slowly, when your men touched what's mine. Connor frowned. Yours? We were collecting a debt from a waitress. Lorenzo stopped 2 feet from him. The air went cold. The waitress, Lorenzo said quietly, is mine. The girl is mine. The debt is canceled. Connor laughed, thin, forced. That's not how this works. That debt is on the books. Ollie wants his money. Or the collateral. The collateral? Lorenzo echoed. You mean the ledger? Silence slammed into the room. Connor's face drained of color. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. Lorenzo nodded once. Rocco slammed the bat onto the poker table. The crack was deafening. Chips and cards scattered across the floor. This bat, Lorenzo said evenly, belongs to one of your men. He left it behind after trying to cave a woman's skull in. I'm returning it. He lifted the bat, weighing it in his hands. You tell Declan this, Lorenzo continued. If I see one of his men within 5 miles of Isabella or Sophie, I won't come to talk. I'll burn this city until the only thing left of the Ollie name is ash. Connor scoffed weakly. You're starting a war over a skirt. Lorenzo moved. In a blur, the bat swung, not at Connor's head, but at the whiskey shelves. Bottles exploded, glass and amber liquid raining down. Before Connor could react, Lorenzo grabbed him by the throat and slammed him onto the glass-slick bar. I'm not starting a war, Lorenzo whispered into his ear. I'm ending one. He released him. Connor collapsed, gasping. Lorenzo straightened his tie and walked out, glass crunching beneath his shoes. Rocco and Leo followed, never turning their backs. Back in the SUV, as the engine rolled forward and the adrenaline drained away, a cold realization settled in Lorenzo's chest. He had just told O'Malley he had the ledger. And now, he would have to act like it. He hadn't played his hand. He had bluffed. And if Bella didn't actually have proof of Ali's drug operation, then Lorenzo hadn't just threatened an enemy, he had painted a target on his own back, big enough to be seen from the sky. Boss, Rocco said from the front seat as the car tore through the empty streets toward the highway, tires humming against wet asphalt. You just baited a shark. Lorenzo didn't look at him. Streetlights streaked past the window in pale gold lines, flashing across his expression. Sharks are easy, he said calmly. You just have to be the bigger monster. But his thoughts weren't on Ollie. They weren't on the war he may have just started. They were on the memory of a 6-year-old girl with blue eyes, standing in the rain, clutching his hand like it was the only solid thing left in her world. He needed to get back to the estate. Because deep down, Lorenzo knew the hardest battle ahead wasn't going to be against Ollie. It was going to be facing the woman he had just claimed as his own. 3 days passed. The Moretti estate, normally a fortress of silence, sharp whispers, and grim business, felt wrong. The stillness was gone. In its place were bright cartoon voices echoing off marble walls, and the soft, uneven rhythm of small feet running across floors meant for polished shoes and power plays. Bella was healing. The swelling in her face had gone down, revealing high cheekbones and a mouth set with quiet determination. Her ribs were still taped, her movements cautious. She walked with a limp, but refused to stay still for long. Lorenzo had tried to keep his distance. He buried himself in his study, drowning in paperwork. Waterfront construction. Security reports. Updates on O'Malley's movements. Every detail of a war being carefully shaped behind closed doors. And yet, his focus kept slipping. On the fourth morning, at exactly 7 a.m., Lorenzo walked into the kitchen expecting what he always had, black coffee and silence. Instead, he walked into chaos. Flour coated everything. The counter. The floor. Rocco's immaculate black suit jacket. Sophie sat on the granite island, legs swinging, wearing one of Lorenzo's oversized t-shirts like a dress. Her face was scrunched in fierce concentration as she whisked a bowl of batter. Bella stood at the stove, flipping pancakes. And Rocco, the same man who could break bones without blinking, was frozen in place, holding a bottle of maple syrup like it was a live grenade. "Good morning," Bella said casually, then turned. She froze. Lorenzo stood there in gray sweatpants and a fitted black t-shirt. No suit. No armor. Just raw presence. The ink on his arms, intricate tattoo sleeves, shifted as he moved, disappearing beneath fabric that clung to muscle and tension. For the first time, Bella didn't see a businessman. She saw a warrior at rest. "What is this?" Lorenzo asked, scanning the flour storm. "Pancakes," Sophie announced proudly. "Mr. Rocco is helping. He's the syrup man." Lorenzo's gaze slid to Rocco. Rocco shrugged, defeated. She asked nicely, "Boss, what was I supposed to do?" A ghost of a smile touched Lorenzo's lips, brief, unfamiliar, but real. "Carry on, syrup man." He took a seat at the island. Sophie immediately scooted closer, unafraid now. Not after that night in the rain. "Do you want chocolate chips?" she asked seriously. "I don't eat sweets, Piccola," Lorenzo replied. "You have to," she insisted. "It makes the grumpiness go away." Bella set a plate in front of him. 3 pancakes, heavy with chocolate chips. "She's right," Bella said softly. "You look like you haven't slept in a week. Eat." Lorenzo looked up at her. The bruises on her face had faded into soft yellows and greens. She looked warm. Domestic. Completely out of place in his cold, sterile kitchen. And yet, something in his chest tightened. He took a bite. Sweet. Too sweet. And somehow perfect. Then Bella shifted. "So," she said, leaning back against the counter, arms crossing. The air changed. "Rocco told me you went to see Ali's men." Lorenzo stopped chewing. He shot Rocco a glare. Rocco suddenly became very interested in the ceiling. "I handled it," Lorenzo said evenly. "Did you handle it?" Bella pressed, "or did you start a war?" "The guards are doubling the perimeter." "You're expecting an attack." Lorenzo set the fork down. "Sophie," he said calmly. "Go watch cartoons with Rocco." Sophie hesitated, sensing the tension, then hopped down. "Come on, syrup man." Rocco didn't argue. He practically fled. When the room was quiet, Lorenzo stood and walked around the island until he was directly in front of Bella. She had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "You're safe here, Isabella," he said. "I told you that." "I don't want to be safe if it means you getting killed," she snapped. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know us." "I told Ali I have the ledger," Lorenzo said flatly. Bella went pale. Her fingers dug into the counter. "You what?" "He believes I have proof of his trafficking. That's why he hasn't moved. He thinks I'll hand it to the feds. Or the commission." "But you don't have it," Bella said, panic rising. "I don't have it. It doesn't exist. My father was a drunk. A gambler. He made up stories to feel important." Silence. Lorenzo studied her face. She wasn't lying. "If there's no ledger," he said quietly, his voice turning dangerous, "then we have a problem. Because as long as O'Malley believes there is one, he'll hunt you. And if he learns I was bluffing, he'll come for all of us." "Then let me go," Bella whispered. "I'll run. I'll take Sophie and disappear." "No." The word was final. Lorenzo reached out, cupping her face. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, rough skin against soft warmth. "You're not going anywhere," he said. "You're mine now. You're my protection." Bella swallowed. "Is that all I am?" she asked softly. "A liability? A problem to manage?" Lorenzo's gaze dropped to her lips. He wanted to kiss her, to pull her close, to forget the war gathering outside these walls. But he was a man who never forgot what power cost. The truth had been hiding in plain sight the entire time. Lorenzo pulled his hand back, his expression unreadable. "You're the only real thing left in this house," he said quietly. Then he turned to leave, but paused in the doorway. "Search your things, Bella. Every toy. Every box. Every scrap your father ever kept. If that ledger exists, we need it before Ollie calls my bluff." 2 days later, the storm came back with a vengeance. Rain slammed against the bulletproof windows of the mansion's library, each strike echoing like a warning. Bella sat on the cold floor, surrounded by stacks of old boxes and scattered papers. Lorenzo had sent his men to clear out her cramped apartment before O'Malley's people could get to it. They brought back everything she owned. It wasn't much. Clothes, cheap dishes, and a few worn boxes filled with her father's belongings. She had been digging through them for hours. Her fingers ached. Her head throbbed. And still, nothing. Just tax forms, gambling receipts, faded photographs from a time when their mother was still alive, and everything hadn't fallen apart yet. "It's not here," Bella muttered, shoving another pile of papers back into a box. Her hands trembled as tears burned behind her eyes. Lorenzo was risking everything over a story that might not even be real. The library door creaked open. Sophie shuffled inside, dragging her feet. She clutched her favorite toy, a ragged, oversized teddy bear with one missing eye and seams that had been stitched and restitched too many times to count. "Bella," Sophie whined softly. "I'm bored. The internet's not working." Bella wiped her eyes and forced a calm breath. "I know, sweetie. The storm probably knocked it out." Sophie shoved the teddy bear toward her. "Mr. Cuddles is hungry." Bella managed a weak smile and took the bear. And immediately froze. It was heavy. Way heavier than it should have been. Her brow furrowed. She squeezed the bear's stomach. Crunch. Not the soft give of stuffing. Paper. Something solid. Bella's heart slammed into her ribs. Her eyes snapped to the uneven stitching running down the bear's back. The thread was thicker. Sloppier. Like it had been sewn by someone who didn't know what they were doing. "Sophie," Bella said slowly, her voice shaking. "Did Daddy ever fix Mr. Cuddles?" Sophie nodded without hesitation. "Yeah. Before he went to sleep forever. He said Mr. Cuddles had a tummy ache and needed medicine inside. He said I had to keep him safe. And never let the bad men take him." The room tilted. He hid it in the bear. The one thing Sophie never let out of her sight. "Sophie," Bella said urgently, "I need to operate on Mr. Cuddles." She grabbed a letter opener from Lorenzo's desk and carefully cut the thick stitches along the bear's B. Ack. Reaching inside, her fingers brushed against cold metal. She pulled it out. A flash drive. Wrapped tightly beside it was a small, leather-bound notebook. Bella flipped it open. Dates. Shipping container numbers. Payouts. Names. Politicians. Police captains. And written at the top of every single page. Declan Ollie. "Oh my God," Bella whispered. It was real. She stood up, clutching the evidence to her chest. She had to tell Lorenzo. But then another thought crept in. Darker. Sharper. Lorenzo was a mob boss too. He had protected them. He had been kind. But what if he only wanted the ledger to take Ali's empire for himself? What if once he had this, Bella and Sophie were no longer useful? Lorenzo had called himself a predator. Could a wolf really guard a lamb? The library door opened. Bella jumped, shoving the notebook behind her back. It wasn't Lorenzo. It was Councilman Henderson, the sweaty man from the club that first night. He smiled, but his eyes were empty. Henderson? Bella asked, confused. What are you doing here? Where's Lorenzo? Occupied, Henderson said calmly as he stepped inside and shut the door behind him. A silenced pistol rested in his hand. Bella gasped, yanking Sophie behind her. Smart girl, Henderson said, his gaze flicking to Bella's hidden hand. You found it. The ledger. I don't know what you're talking about, Bella stammered, backing toward the desk. Don't lie, Henderson replied. I've been watching the cameras. I work for Lorenzo, sure, but Ollie pays better. And O'Malley promised me a Senate seat if I deliver the book. You're the mole, Bella realized. I told them how to get in, Henderson corrected. The security system is down because of me. Not the storm. The lights suddenly flickered, then died. Emergency red lighting flooded the room, painting everything in blood-colored shadows. Give me the book, Isabella, Henderson said, raising the gun. And maybe I'll let the kid live. No. Sophie screamed. Bella's fingers closed around a heavy marble paperweight behind her. Lorenzo will kill you, Bella warned. Henderson smirked. Lorenzo is dead. Ollie's hit squad is entering the West Wing right now. Everyone here is about to be slaughtered. Boom. An explosion ripped through the mansion. The floor buckled beneath them. Henderson's focus broke, for just a second. Bella threw the paperweight with everything she had. It slammed into his shoulder. He roared, the gun firing wildly into the ceiling. Run, Sophie! Bella screamed, shoving her toward the servants' corridor. You bitch! Henderson shouted, switching hands. Bella tackled him. She was smaller. Injured. Terrified. But she was a big sister. They hit the floor hard. Henderson smashed the gun into her face. White light exploded in her vision. Blood filled her mouth. He pinned her down, pressing the cold barrel of the gun against her forehead. Game over, he snarled. Bang. The shot echoed through the library. Bella waited for darkness. Instead, Henderson went limp. She shoved his body aside, gasping for air. Standing in the doorway, framed by red emergency lights, was Lorenzo. His gun smoked. His shirt was torn. Blood dripped from his arm. He looked like something dragged straight out of hell. And he was alive. Lorenzo stepped over Henderson's lifeless body and yanked Bella upright, his hands already moving, checking her arms, her shoulders, her face, anywhere there might be blood. Did he hurt you? He demanded. His voice was shaking. Not with fear, but with rage. No, Bella sobbed, clutching the front of his shirt like it was the only thing keeping her standing. He said you were dead. Lorenzo let out a low, dangerous growl. It takes more than a few mercenaries to kill me. Then his expression hardened. But they're inside the house. We don't have time. Bella pulled away suddenly and dropped to the floor, snatching up the notebook and flash drive where they had fallen during the struggle. Her hands trembled as she shoved them into High's chest. I found it, she said breathlessly. The ledger. It's real. Lorenzo looked down at the book, then back at her. For half a second, something like relief flickered across his face. He took it, then immediately pushed it back into her pocket. Keep it. What? No, I don't want it, Bella protested. Lorenzo was already reloading his gun. I don't want the book, he said flatly. I want you to survive. If we get separated, that ledger is your leverage. It's your life insurance. He grabbed her hand. Where's Sophie? I sent her through the servants' passage. Good. Rocco's there. He'll get her to the safe room. Gunfire exploded somewhere nearby. Lorenzo turned toward the door. Stay behind me, he ordered. Then, with a grim glance over his shoulder, he added, and don't close your eyes this time, Bella. I need you to see what I'm about to do to them. The hallway outside the library was pure chaos. Shadows clashed with blinding muzzle flashes. Emergency lights strobed red, turning drifting smoke into a thick, blood-colored fog. Every gunshot cracked like thunder in the enclosed space. Lorenzo moved through it with terrifying precision. He didn't just shoot, he controlled the space. He pulled Bella tight against his back, their movements synced as if they were a single body. Keep your head down, he said calmly, as bullets tore through the air around them. Two men in tactical gear rounded the corner. They didn't even get a chance to react. 2 shots. Controlled. Clean. They dropped instantly. Professionals, Lorenzo muttered as he stepped over one of the bodies and snatched up a fallen rifle. Mercenaries. O'Malley spent a fortune on this. Bella's ears were ringing. Her heart felt like it might burst out of her chest. How do we get out? She shouted. We don't go out, Lorenzo replied. We go down. The wine cellar connects to a tunnel that leads to the boathouse. Rocco knows the protocol. They reached the grand staircase. Below them, the foyer looked like A.B. Adelfield. Moretti's security team, men in black suits, were trading heavy fire with O'Malley's mercenaries pouring in through the shattered front doors. Priceless vases lay in fragments across the marble floor. The massive crystal chandelier sparkled violently as bullets chipped glass from its edges. We can't cross that, Bella yelled. We have to, Lorenzo said. He turned to her. His dark eyes locked onto hers, intense and unwavering. Do you trust me? Yes, she said instantly. And the realization hit her just as fast, she truly meant it. She would follow this man anywhere. Then run when I say run. Lorenzo raised the captured rifle and unleashed suppressing fire from the banister, forcing the mercenaries below to dive for cover. Run! They charged down the staircase, slipping on shattered glass and debris. A bullet screamed past Bella's ear and slammed into the wall. Lorenzo twisted, shielding her with his body. Another shot grazed his shoulder. He didn't even flinch. They burst through the heavy oak doors into the kitchen. And suddenly, silence. The kitchen stood eerily untouched. Flour still dusted the floor from that morning's pancakes. The smell of food lingered faintly, a haunting reminder of the normal life that had vanished in minutes. Rocco, Lorenzo called softly. Here, boss. The voice came from behind the pantry island. Rocco sat slumped on the floor, his face pale, his suit dark with blood around his thigh. A makeshift tourniquet, his belt, was cinched tight. Beside him, Sophie was curled into a corner, clutching the empty shell of Mr. Cuddles. When she saw Bella, she didn't scream. She scrambled forward and buried her face into Bella's stomach. I got her here, Rocco grunted, trying, and failing, to stand. But I took a hit. Artery, I think. Lorenzo knelt immediately, checking the tourniquet. It was tight, but Rocco was losing color fast. You did good, Lorenzo said quietly, his voice thick. You did real good. Leave me, Enzo, Rocco wheezed, press. ING a fresh magazine into Lorenzo's hand. I can hold the door. Get them to the boat. No. Sophie cried, turning toward him. No. Syrup Man comes too. Boots thundered closer outside the kitchen. I don't leave family behind, Lorenzo snarled. He hauled Rocco to his feet. Bella, take his other side. Sophie, hold onto my belt. Don't let go. They dragged Rocco toward the service elevator, every second stretching unbearably long. The kitchen doors exploded open just as the elevator doors slid shut. Bullets slammed into the metal as the elevator descended. For a moment. Safety. The cellar was cool and smelled of dust and aged wine. Lorenzo led them to a rack of Pinot Noir bottles. He pulled one specific bottle. The shelf swung open. A damp concrete tunnel yawned before them. Go, Lorenzo said, pushing them inside. You're not coming, Bella realized, panic seizing her chest. They're right behind us, Lorenzo said calmly. If I don't collapse the entrance, they'll follow us to the water. I have to take out the support beams. You'll be buried. Bella cried, grabbing his arm. I'll run fast, he lied. He kissed her forehead, hard and desperate. Get Sophie to the boat. Start the engine. Wait 2 minutes. If I'm not there, go. Before she could stop him, he shoved her into the tunnel and slammed the hidden door shut. Enzo! Bella screamed, pounding the metal. Gio, his voice came, muffled through stone. Tears streamed down her soot-streaked face. She grabbed Rocco's weight, took Sophie's hand, and forced herself forward. Come on, she sobbed. We have to go. They disappeared into the dark tunnel, guided only by faint emergency lights, leaving everything else behind. It felt like they'd been running forever. Then, suddenly, they burst out of the tunnel and into the open air of the boathouse. Cold rain hit their faces as the night opened up around them. The smell of damp wood and river water filled Bella's lungs. Just ahead, tied to the dock, waited a sleek speedboat, low. Fast, and their only way out. Bella didn't hesitate. She helped Rocco in first, then Sophie, lifting the girl carefully despite her shaking hands. Then she vaulted into the driver's seat. She had never driven a boat in her life, but she knew how to turn a key. The engine roared to life, loud and alive beneath them. Wait, Sophie whispered suddenly, her small finger pointing back toward the dark mouth of the tunnel. A split second later. Boom. A dull, heavy explosion shook the ground beneath the estate. The shockwave rippled through the water as dust and debris burst outward from the tunnel entrance. Lorenzo, Bella whispered, her chest tightening, her heart cracking open. 1 minute passed. Rocco groaned from the back seat, pain and panic bleeding into his voice. Bella, we have to go. They'll be on the docks in seconds. 2 minutes, Bella shot back, gripping the wheel. Her voice was fierce, stubborn. He said 2 minutes. 90 seconds. Gunfire erupted from the cliffs above the boathouse. The sharp cracks echoed through the rain as bullets tore into the water around them, splashing violently against the hull. Bella! Rocco shouted. She didn't move. Then, a figure emerged from the smoke. He was limping, coated in white dust, his silhouette ghost-like against the flames and chaos behind him. Lorenzo. He ran, forcing speed into battered legs, then launched himself forward just as the dock beneath him exploded into splinters from machine gun fire. He hit the water hard and vanished beneath the surface. Bella screamed, lunging over the side of the boat. A hand broke through the water. She grabbed it. Strength she didn't know she had surged through her arms. Fueled by pure adrenaline, Bella hauled him toward the swim platform as bullets continued to rip through the night. Lorenzo coughed violently as he rolled into the boat, water and plaster pouring from him. Drive, he roared. Bella slammed the throttle forward. The boat surged ahead, the bow lifting as they tore away from the burning estate, vanishing into the dark, rain-slicked expanse of the Hudson River. Behind them, flames climbed into the sky, consuming millions of dollars, decades of power, and the old life of Lorenzo Moretti. He didn't look back. He sat on the floor of the boat, holding Sophie tightly as Bella steered them toward the coming dawn. 6 months later, the rain felt different. In New York, rain was angry. It slammed into pavement like it was trying to erase sins too deep to scrub away. It smelled of ozone, garbage, and urgency. In Paris, on a quiet cobblestone corner of the 4th arrondissement, the rain was gentle. It felt like a soft curtain, blurring the world, offering privacy instead of punishment. Isabella sat at a small wrought iron table outside Leedy Cafe, sheltered beneath a wide canvas awning. The air carried the rich scent of roasted coffee beans, damp stone, and warm pastries drifting from the open door behind her. She wrapped her wool coat tighter around herself, not from the cold, but from habit. Old instincts of self-protection were hard to break. On the table lay a copy of the International Herald Tribune. The headline was bold. Black. Final. O'Malley crime syndicate dismantled in massive New York corruption scandal. Bella traced a finger across the newsprint. It had become the largest RICO case in 2 decades. An anonymous package had been delivered simultaneously to the FBI and Quantico, the New York Times, and Interpol. It contained everything. The ledger hidden inside the teddy bear. The digital backups from the flash drive. Audio recordings Lorenzo had secretly made over the years, his voice calm as Councilman Henderson incriminated himself again and again. There was no escaping it. No bought judges. No buried evidence. Declan Ali sat in solitary confinement now, awaiting a trial that would put him away for 3 lifetimes. His empire had collapsed overnight, stripped apart by federal agents and rival gangs alike. But on page 4, here was another story. A smaller one. An obituary. Lorenzo Moretti, 32. Suspected mob boss. Presumed dead in Palisades estate fire. Bella's chest ached every time she read it. The official report claimed the fire, caused by a gas line explosion during a gang dispute, had burned so hot that dental records were impossible to verify. Remains were found. The owner of the house was assumed dead. The case was closed. The King of New York was gone. Bella lifted her cappuccino, foam clinging to her lip, and took a slow sip. The bell above the cafe door jingled. She looked up. A man stepped outside, shaking rain from his umbrella. He wasn't wearing Italian silk suits anymore. No tailored power armor. Just dark denim jeans, scuffed leather boots, and a charcoal wool peacoat that fit his broad shoulders perfectly. His hair was longer now, slightly messy, curling at the collar, something the old Lorenzo never would have allowed. The scar through his eyebrow remained, a pale line against dark hair. But the hardness in his eyes, the constant expectation of betrayal, was gone. In his left hand, he held the hand of a little girl. Sophie wore a bright yellow raincoat and matching galoshes, waddling through puddles like a cheerful duckling. She laughed freely, pointing at a pigeon battling another bird over a crumb near the gutter. "Look, Papa. He's winning," she chirped, her voice carrying through the soft patter of rain. Lorenzo Moretti, Luca, to their neighbors, smiled down at her. Not the guarded smirk of a man used to command rooms. A real smile. One that reached his eyes. "Pigeons are ruthless, Piccolina," he said, his voice still a low rumble that sent a familiar shiver through Bella. "They're the mobsters of the bird world." "Do they have guns?" Sophie asked seriously, eyes wide. "No," Lorenzo chuckled, squeezing her hand. "Just very aggressive beaks and a bad attitude." They walked over to the table. Lorenzo leaned down and kissed Bella gently on the cheek. His lips were cool from the rain, his breath warm against her skin. "Did you get it?" Bella asked quietly, folding the newspaper so the headline disappeared. She didn't want darkness at their table. "Not today." Lorenzo nodded. "Hot chocolate. Extra whipped cream." 6 months ago, this man ruled New York through fear. Today, he was being blackmailed by a 6-year-old over a pastry. A waiter trailed behind them with a silver tray, trying, and failing, to look discreet. Somewhere between the cafe door and the table, Lorenzo had apparently been strong-armed into buying a pain au chocolate. "Coerced?" Bella echoed, arching an eyebrow as she turned toward Sophie. Sophie attempted innocence, which lasted exactly half a second. She hauled herself onto the chair beside Bella and crossed her arms proudly. "It wasn't coercion," she said. "It was a negotiation." "A negotiation?" Bella asked. Yes, Sophie nodded. I told him that if I didn't get the pastry, I would tell you he let me jump in 3 puddles. She paused, pleased with herself. It was leverage. Lorenzo exhaled and shook his head as he sat across from them. She learns too fast. As he adjusted his position, a faint wince crossed his face. The limp was barely noticeable now, only a slight hitch, but rainy days still stirred the old ache in his hip. A quiet reminder of the tunnel collapse. Of what it had cost him. Bella noticed immediately. Are you okay? She asked softly, reaching across the table. Her fingers found his hand, warm and steady. I'm fine, Lorenzo said. And for the first time in his life, it wasn't a lie. He looked at Bella. Not just glanced, but really looked at her. 6 months ago, she had stood in his office shaking. A bruised waitress smelling of cheap diner grease and fear, eyes darting toward every shadow. Now she was radiant. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders, healthy and full. Her skin glowed. There was a quiet confidence in the way she sat, the way she spoke. She was studying art history at the Sorbonne, an old dream she'd buried when her father got sick and the bills kept coming. I saw you reading the paper, Lorenzo said, his thumb brushing slowly over her knuckles. Bella leaned closer and lowered her voice. They caught the last of them. Connor O'Malley was arrested in Boston this morning. She swallowed, then smiled. It's over, Lorenzo. It's really over. Lorenzo stared into his black coffee, watching steam curl upward and disappear. It's never fully over, he said quietly. You know that. Men like me, we leave shadows. And sometimes they stretch long. You're not that man anymore, Bella said, fierce certainty in her voice. I was, Lorenzo replied gently. I did terrible things. He turned his hand slightly, palms up. Building bakeries and funding orphanages doesn't wash the blood away. No, Bella agreed. It doesn't erase it. But it balances the scale. She met his eyes. You saved us. You gave up a kingdom for a girl who interrupted your meeting. Lorenzo smiled faintly. I didn't give up anything I wanted to keep. His gaze drifted to Sophie, who now had a whipped cream mustache and was attempting to feed a piece of pastry to her stuffed bear, Mr. Cuddles, while whispering encouragement. Rocco called, Lorenzo added, changing the subject. How is he handling French cheese? Bella laughed. He says it smells like feet wrapped in sadness. But he's safe. The doctors in Zurich say his leg is fully healed. He'll be joining us for Christmas. That's good, Bella said softly. Sophie misses her syrup man. Lorenzo leaned back in his chair. For the first time in over a decade, the tension that had defined his posture, his entire existence, was gone. He looked out at the street. At strangers passing by who had no idea they were walking past a ghost. His mind drifted back to the night of the fire. The heat. The crushing weight of the ceiling. The moment he thought he wouldn't reach the water. The panic of drowning. The darkness closing in. And then Bella's hand. Small. Fragile. Gripping his wrist with impossible strength. Pulling him back like a Valkyrie refusing to let go. He had spent his life believing power came from fear. That loyalty could be bought. That love was a weakness to be cut loose. Now he looked at Sophie, giggling as she kicked her legs beneath the table. Then at Bella, watching him with quiet, unwavering love. And he understood something devastatingly simple. He had been the poorest man in New York. What are you thinking about? Bella asked. Lorenzo took a slow sip of his coffee. I'm thinking the news got it wrong. Wrong? He nodded toward the newspaper on the table. It says Lorenzo Moretti lost everything. That he died with nothing but ashes to his name. He glanced at the rain-slicked street. Then back at them. But looking at you. I think I pulled off the greatest heist in history. Bella laughed, bright, unburdened, free. You're arrogant. I'm accurate, he smirked. Suddenly, Sophie tugged on his sleeve. Papa, the rain stopped. The swings are dry now. You promised to push me to the sky. Lorenzo groaned theatrically, but stood anyway. He turned to Bella and held out his hand. Coming, my love? She took it without hesitation. His hand was scarred. Rough. Strong. The same hand that once held a gun to save her life, now guiding her through it. Always, Bella said. They left the cafe together, the newspaper abandoned on the table. A gust of wind flipped its pages, covering the obituary with the sports section. Lorenzo Moretti was dead. But Luca, the father, the husband, walked down the wet street, chasing a little girl in yellow boots toward the park. Free at last. And that is the story of how a 6-year-old girl melted the heart of the most dangerous man in New York. Lorenzo Moretti lost his empire. His home. His name. But he gained something worth more than all the dirty money in the world. A family. So the question is, if you were in his place, would you have burned it all down for a stranger? Or would you have handed over the ledger to keep your power? Because this story reminds us that even the darkest souls carry a spark of light, waiting for the right person to ignite it. Sometimes the hero isn't the knight in shining armor. Sometimes, it's the villain who chooses to change the ending. If you enjoyed this Mafia romance with twists and heart, hit the like button, it really helps the channel. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And tell me in the comments. Did Lorenzo make the right choice, or should he have kept the money? I'll see you in the next video.